Okay, thank you, Sue. I'm looking forward to the new math series. I think we're going to really see some good integration. And one of the things Sue and I talk about all the time is getting kids to explain how they know. And I know the new math series is going to talk about that. And we've always encouraged teachers to ask children that. We really get into much more understanding of what they know and then where they still need to go. I'm going to focus, though, today on the English Language Arts IFG and the changes that we've made for grades 3 through 5. There are a number of them, and I'm happy to say that while some are district written, others have been written by Reading Wonders. So let's look at just a couple of those. First of all, I wanted to say for grade 3 that we know that the FSA writing assessment begins in grade 4, and also it will be given in grade 5 and has been given in grade 5. However, we know that we want to prepare our students for the FSA writing, and we also want to know that and acknowledge the fact that when we look at any kind of rubric or writing checklist, it really is based on the Florida standards. And so what we've done is taken taken the standards and kind of built on those standards, and we've written a grade 3 writing checklist. As you can see here, it's focused on the same elements that you're going to see in FSA writing: purpose and focus, organization, elaboration, and conventions. And all of those are really important to a good piece of writing. But when children begin to know that their writing needs to have these elements, we as teachers can actually teach those pieces. So I've included something that I know that we really appreciate as elementary teachers, and that is that they're written in I statements or in statements that are friendly to children. So my writing answers the prompt or the question I was asked. That's something that a child could say, and it's something that we could, as teachers, work on by us checking, is that true on a student's writing? But it's also important for peer review. So partners can talk about each other's writing and be able to check off the elements that they see. When we notice that some things are not checked off, we might be concerned, and we may say, that's something I really need to focus on in my class. And so I need to do a mini lesson about that. So this is something that we are piloting this summer in our summer reading camp, but we're going to put out the beginning of the school year and then see how that's useful to teachers and to students, and then perhaps move into the rubric that we might write based on, again, the Florida standards for writing as well as for language, because we know that writing includes all of those. Another thing I want to mention is that in Reading Wonders, this is something that it's not new, but it's something I think we're appreciating a little bit more, in the sense that we know that students will be writing from authentic texts. And there are a number of Time for Kids articles in every one of the units. And this is just one from 3rd grade, which is Saving Our Oceans. And I think it's very useful because we can not only talk about the selection ourselves by using the headings as you see there, but also the photographs. There are infographics that are included, and also captions that are associated with the photographs themselves. So it's talking about text and their structure, and it's also a good piece to be able to write from. So I wanted to bring that in as something that could be very useful for writing as well as reading. Do I want to change the color? I don't think so. I think I like it just the way it is. So I'm going to go right on. All right. I'm not sure why that came up. Sorry about that. Okay. Also, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I put out an email talking about the fact that the weekly assessments for grades 3, 4, and 5 were being revised, and they were going to be including more FSA-like questions. The passages themselves will not change, but the questions will. They will not be in the printable assessment tab. they will be included in the online assessment center. And I went there just yesterday and tried to click on it, and it's not open yet. When is it going to actually happen? Well, I've heard late July and early August, and I know that can be a little anxiety for us because we like to get things prepared for the first week of Reading Wonders. However, I will encourage you not to worry about that so much and maybe look at your instructional focus guide and include some of the formative assessments that are written there and use some of those, and also be able to use some of the assessments that were highlighted in the assessment webinar that we had just last week. Now let me talk a little bit about grades 4 and 5. We notice, and this is something I did not mention for grade 3, but Bernadette did talk about the social studies and ELA project that we had that includes the primary source documents that are associated with the reading writing workshop selections. And so that goes from grades 1 through 5, as she had said before, but I want you to know that those are right on the IFG page. And it's something that you can easily find and begin to integrate social studies within your ELA time. Also, looking at the time for kids piece, here's one of the ones in the early units for, I believe this is 5th grade, and it's bullying. And I thought it was a really good topic because we know that as students get older and they start to develop closer friendships with others, that sometimes bullying is out there. And of course, we want children to understand all about why that's not appropriate to do and how hurtful that can be. And that it's also, in some states, illegal. So I thought this was a great article to be able to look at. And so I encourage you, again, to use Time for Kids to be able to use some of those authentic texts, not only for reading, but for writing and for listening and speaking. Let's not forget about that, to be able to talk about these pieces. Also, remember the collaborative conversation starters. That could be great to be using with Time for Kids or for anything. This is something you may have seen, but I found this when I was looking through the online section, and I wanted to call your attention to it if you haven't been using it. And that is, first of all, that at the end of every unit, there are the skill review page. There's a skill review page. And we know that this one had focused heavily on text structure, mainly problem and solution. And I thought, just before we decide to give an assessment, it might be something to do a mini lesson using the text and using the Reading Writing Workshop book. As you notice at the top here, let's see, at the top, here it is, there's a skill tracker also. So you can see where that has been taught previously and where it will continue to be taught, and also where in what units it will be assessed. And of course, this is 5th grade. Last year when I was visiting with some schools, I talked a lot about the writer's workspace. And this is your main page. And sometimes when you first open up your main page, you sort of can't see because it stops sort of here. And one night when I couldn't sleep very well, I woke up and I was looking at the Reading Wonders site. I know it's a little sad, but that's true. Anyway, and I found this writer's workspace, and it's really terrific because it really supports our students in terms of the writing process itself. Let me show you a little bit about that. You will have this for every unit, and you will have it for explanatory and informative writing, as well as opinion writing, and many others. Letter writing, whatever is the writing skill, that will be a focus for the writer's workspace for your unit. This is one piece I really liked, and this goes along with an explanatory essay, and it is an expert model. In other words, if you were to sit with that writing checklist I talked about earlier, or your grades 4 and 5 writing rubric, for FSA writing, you would see that the elements of focus and purpose, organization, elaboration, and conventions are all included in this piece. And this is a piece of writing that I would use with students just to have them even highlight. Is this writing focused? How do we know that? What about elaboration? Do we see elaboration as we're going through to build on some of the topic sentences? And what about the conventions? Does this, the way the conventions are used, the capitalization, the punctuation, does it help the reader read and understand what this piece is all about? And so they can actually analyze that piece. Then there is another piece that is called the revised student model. And again, this is an example of an explanatory essay from another unit. And this one's called Green Roofs. And the nice thing about it is it gives a piece of writing and then it shows how you might edit this piece in order to get rid of irrelevant information, or to make corrections, or to add elaboration, or to be able to explain. And so they use the editing marks here, and I think that's really, really important, because sometimes when kids write the first draft, even when we as adults do that, there are things that when we reread, we realize are really not appropriate, or that we need more. So that's the revised student model. And then here's a student draft model. So you could use this piece and ask students to, actually, you could use this actually before the other one, where you could have students revise and edit someone else's writing. You know, it's always easier to revise and edit somebody else's writing other than your own. You really see sometimes the negative pieces, but you can also learn to appreciate appropriate kinds of writing elements that are included in someone's writing. And I might even suggest you use different color highlighters so that, you know, kids love that. Maybe use yellow for its focus and there's purpose to the writing. Or use pink because that's an example of elaboration. Kids could do this together as pairs, and they could be able to talk about that, and then they could use that revised student model that we saw just a minute ago. So, just coming to a close here on my section, I did want to say that I have sent to all of the team leaders as of yesterday, which would have been Tuesday, a Reading Wonders in Service survey. I send this every year, no matter what series we're using, but of course we have Reading Wonders. And we had some great participation this past year. We had face-to-face workshops as well as webinars. They were very successful, and many of you participated in that. And so this year I asked some teachers for some suggestions for in-service for next year, and they gave me some possibilities, but that doesn't mean you have to choose those. There's an opportunity to name some of the things that you might want to see as an in-service survey, in-service piece for next year. It'll also ask you what is the venue that you'd like, face-to-face or webinar, and when and where would be the best for you. And then also I'd like to get information about your school and your grades so I know what's important for those. I will say for new teachers, we already have put those in as necessary for new teachers. So if you become a mentor for a teacher, you'll know that we will be having a workshop for them. So I encourage you to do that, and please get on as soon as you can so that I can settle those dates and those topics and find some locations if it's face-to-face, or make arrangements if it's a webinar. So thank you for your attention to this. If you have questions for me, because I'm not here today, I'm at a reading supervisors meeting in Orlando, I encourage you to just email me and I'll be happy to answer those questions.